Okay, welcome to our candidate training. This week we're going to be training on how to do media interviews, how to do virtual town halls, and what is a good practice to do and what is not a good practice to do. So we'll be presenting that, but you can also see and hear it visually on what things are good practices and what are not good practices. So my partner in crime on this is the lovely Jess Mears. So I will turn it over to Jess and she can get underway.
Hey everyone. So Cara and I are exemplifying some things to do and some things not to do as you are candidates during COVID. As you have probably found out that your campaign is going to be shifting some gears and you're going to be spending a lot more time in the digital space rather than in person and having in-person events, in-person interviews, you're likely going to be spending a lot more time campaigning from your home. So we're trying to figure out some ways to make it easier for you to campaign from your home. So I'm going to go over how I am coming to you right now. So Cara is right now, she is typing, which is creating a little bit of background noise. So something not to do while you are a candidate, just so you know that during your interviews. But I have some tips for you. I want to suggest as a candidate that you're camera ready when you're at home. When you're running a full-fledged campaign in the thick of the season, being ready to go to an event from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. is very typical when you have an active campaign. And so you still want to be camera ready when you're at home. You're probably going to be a little more comfortable than you would be on the regular campaign trail, but it's still very important to be ready to go. So I wanted to tell you about behind me. I have a background. I have a green screen behind me, and I chose an image that I thought represents me pretty well. It's kind of fun, and it's kind of cute and modern. I got it on Etsy, and I downloaded 5 different backgrounds that cost me $2.99. But there's also a service called hellobackground.com. You can download hundreds of images for a total of $30, and you can have a whole host of different kinds of backgrounds. You want to choose something that reflects you well, but still looks professional if you're going to use this green screen option. I wanted to give you another tip too. So I have a green screen behind me, which I'm going to show you in a minute, but I also have a white screen behind that, because in the event that you have some technical glitching, white screen looks just fine. It's not as professional, but it's better than nothing, especially if in your home that you have got, maybe your home has a lot of things going on. And I'll show you now what it looks like in my home at this time. Okay, this is from my cell phone. You can see behind me, there is a green screen, but I'm going to flip my camera around. This is what it looks like in my home. I've got some lighting right there, my camera. I've got a mic with a little boom thing, and my computer is sitting on top of a piece of cardboard so that I am positioned. You can see how I'm positioned in this screen. I've got my face and camera pretty much in line. And one last thing I want to share with you. You can see how my apartment is kind of a mess. I'm like got packing boxes. It's a wreck in here, but it doesn't look too bad when you're just looking at me right here. And last thing I want to show you is, see these little stickers up here that say, look here? That's going to remind you to, sorry. All right, done showing you all my place. That's going to remind you to look here at the camera, because that eye contact, that feedback, you still need it so you're not looking at other things on your screen, because when you dart your eyes just a little bit, it's going to really make your eyes look like they're traveling all over the place, and people will give you that feedback that you're not looking at the camera. So look at the camera, put sticky notes that say, look here. All right, so I shared with you, I've got this background. You can use this on Zoom. This is Zoom virtual background. You don't have to use a green screen, but it definitely does help with having the little bit less of like this is obviously, I'm using not necessarily professional grade equipment. This is very at-home equipment. So you can see how it doesn't look 100% professional, but I didn't spend more than $300 on this whole thing. So I'll go over that here in just a couple minutes. My microphone, it's an Audio-Technica ATR 2100. It's pretty easy to set up. It just uses a USB. Very simple, about $100 or so. If you want to go a cheaper route, you can just use like these are the your iPhone, sorry, let me get out of the Zoom here. All right. These are your iPhone little headset. It's got the mic on it that comes with it. That's pretty reasonably priced, but this also doesn't look as professional. You've probably seen people on the news on camera with these hanging down from their mouths, and it doesn't sound as nice as a microphone. So let's see. All right.
What's going on here? Oh, hey.
So some things I wanted to point out. I wanted to point out that right now we have a little bit of a chance to catch up to media because reporters are right now reporting from in their homes, and we have a chance to look almost as professional as the media does. So we have a chance to catch up and show that you're a professional candidate by just spending a little bit of time and a little bit of investment. I mentioned earlier, my laptop is sitting on a box, so that way it's in frame with my face. If your computer does not have a nice camera on it, see, I have a MacBook Pro. I got this for audio or for creating things, and it has a pretty decent camera, but you could easily upgrade your camera for $50 to one that just plugs in with a USB. In the background, you're going to want to make sure your pets and family know that you're having some kind of digital meeting coming up. I put my dogs in my bedroom, and just 5 minutes ago before we started this, one of my dogs threw up. So I'm going to have to tend to that when this is over. But just something that keep in mind is that your pets need to be out of the way of your interview, as well as your family. So figure out how to do that ahead of time. Some nonverbals when you're interviewing and talking to somebody that you're interviewing with, make sure you're still nodding your head as if you would in a conversation, not too much nodding, just the right amount to make it look like you're engaging in the conversation and listening. And remember to look at the camera, but also be listening and active listening. Makeup. So same thing as on the trail. Men, you're going to want some translucent powder and a little brush because your face, if you're hot in your home, you might get a little shiny while you're running around to finish getting set up for your interview, or maybe you're nervous about the interview. Just a little bit of powder on your face translucent powder can make your face not be a little shiny and a little sweaty during your interview. Haircuts, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that one right now. The government has prevented people from getting haircuts, but figure out something to do with your hair so it looks okay. Mine is right now, my roots are growing out, but I'm just having to deal with that one for the moment. With clothes, if you're gonna go the green screen route, do not wear green. Make sure you have some clothes that are pressed, and do wear pants. We have had a couple situations this year where individuals have not been wearing proper pants, and other people have seen what they were wearing other than pants or a dress or a skirt. So please make sure you have some kind of pants in the event that you need to stand up or your computer moves during your interview. Last words I want to share with you is your internet speed. You're probably just going to have to upgrade your internet if you don't have the best of speeds right now. It's going to be a cost of campaigning this year. You're not going to be using as much on gas, so a couple tanks of gallons of gas right now probably are the same cost as upgrading your internet speed to a faster speed. So I would take care of that before your interview. Close all your tabs. You don't want to have all that RAM or whatever your speed's being taken up on your computer. Restart your computer about 40 minutes before your interview just to kill all of the things that are in the background. So you have few things running so you run into fewer digital issues. Make sure you test and test and test and test. If you are doing an interview with someone that doesn't frequently do interviews, maybe it's a new journalist or something, you might want to ask them if they want to do a test beforehand, if they're going to be recording audio and video. And then practice interviews. Goes the same for when you're not even doing digital outreach. Have friends do a mock debate, a mock interview with you. Do it over the computer so you can start feeling comfortable and prepared looking into your computer to do these kinds of interviews rather than being in person. And then lastly, give yourself some time. Make sure you have the time to set up so you're not rushing around, getting all these little tweaks and things. It can be a little stressful. So you want to make sure you give yourself that time to be calm and collected and relaxed before you start your conversation. So thank you everyone for hearing these tips. And now we're going to go into Cara, some of the things not to do while you are on the digital campaign trail.
Absolutely. So I have been demonstrating a lot of the things not to do, and they may be slightly exaggerated. However, I have seen candidates doing every single one of these things. So yes, you definitely want to make sure that your background is not cluttered. You want to be able to have a control of your environment. If you don't want to do the green screen, that's totally fine. Just make sure that your background is not so cluttered. You can tell the difference in angle between my camera and Jess's camera. So Jess's camera looks more dead on. It is, it gives a feeling of people being able to meet your eyes and sincerity and confidence. And mine's just creepy. So if your camera is doing that upshot, it's creepy. For women,
don't you feel uncomfortable right now, even just with your camera like that?
Yeah, it's odd. And for women especially, an upshot can be particularly problematic. I am not the best person to demonstrate this, but I will somewhat demonstrate it. You get this. That's not good. And I have seen that as well for candidates. So, Jess did a lot of the yeses you want to. And yeah, you do want to make sure that your family's not coming in, your pets aren't coming in, all that kind of stuff, unless you specifically, like in a town hall situation, want a pet to come in because people are, really identifying with people on a human level because they're interacting with pets. But that is something that you control and you design to have happen in a very controlled environment. For women and like, you don't have to wear makeup, but you do want to look presentable. So make sure you look presentable. Pays particular attention to your collar. You can tell that the collar on my t-shirt, this is not the freshest looking t-shirt. Like this is sloppy. Even if I did a cardigan but had some type of crisper collar, that's an entirely different look. Lighting can make you look very different. If you notice in the lighting that we have, you can see age lines on me. If you have an upshot combined with directional lighting coming down, you're going to look older. You're going to look tired. You're definitely not going to look energetic. So those are things that I really caution candidates about. Will you have notes, that you can refer to when you're preparing for a presentation or a meeting or all that kind of stuff? Yes. But what you don't want to do is have them really, really visible, have them crinkly, noisy, those types of things. Make sure that your notes are where you can see them, but they're not creating a problem. Jess was talking about, having that sticker so you make sure you meet the eyes. So my camera is low, and you can see that I'm looking at my screen. I'm not looking at the camera. And so it has this awkwardness to it. Also, you know, when I've been talking, I've been very animated, right? You want to stay more still. Jess is really good at when she's speaking, she's keeping, you know, keeping her shoulders level. She's keeping her body more still. She's letting the animation be in her expression. And that is definitely something you want to do. If you are being interviewed as opposed to a town hall, this is one thing to keep in mind. You are not there to grant an interview. That is not the purpose. Your purpose as a candidate is to give a performance. You are going to decide what performance you want to give and what lines you will say. And whatever they say and whatever questions they ask, don't deliberately not answer questions, but have your 3 things that you want to get out there. Focus on 3 key message points. And you can pivot to those message points. If they ask a question that's anywhere near, you can pivot to those areas. And the best way to do that is to have bridging statements ready and practice them. And a bridging statement is, and you will see this a lot of times in interviews, a person will say, "That's a great question. I think the heart of what that's a great question. I think the heart of your question is," and then you reframe the question so that you can give the answer you want to give. Because again, you're giving a performance. You're not granting an interview. Granting an interview means they have all the control and power and you don't. Do treat the interviewer like a friend, even if they're hostile. You are friendly. They are your friend. Even if they ask tough questions, even if they ask hostile ones, do not get angry. They are your friend. Act like they are your friend. And remember that you have 3 audiences, you know, when you're doing this. And don't have shit falling out on your desk because you have one, right? So your 3 audiences are your core supporters, right? So little red meat to them. Okay, you know, because you want them to say, "Yep, that's my person," totally. Second audience is undecideds. Okay, so they need to be convinced not so much by your argument or your position, but by your attitude, how they feel about you. Okay, third is you need to speak to a broader audience, which does actually include your competitor supporters. So what they're doing is 2 things. They're looking for gotcha statements, but you may be able to lessen the animosity, which means they won't be out there like pounding pavement to help your opponent. They may sit back, and that's what you want them to do. So stay on point, give a performance, don't grant an interview. Write out and practice your pivot statements so that you can bring what you want to say back in. And that's really your key things. For a town hall, that gets a little trickier because you have to decide how are you going to take questions. If it's one of your first town halls, that type of thing, I do suggest limiting questions into the chat function rather than unmuting everyone and having it be somewhat of a free-for-all, or taking a lot of questions from people you don't know, because there will be people attending it just to crap all over your town hall. And you don't want to give them an easy way to do that. You want to answer questions. You want to answer legitimate questions that people have. You want to answer tough questions. But what you don't want to do is make this a campaign video for your opponent. So those are things that I would cover. If anyone else has any questions, either for myself or for Jess, shoot them into the chat. I'm gonna look back through the chat and see what ones we have.
I have a question to answer for Rob. I'm using this is kind of bougie powder. And so you necessarily don't need to go with this, but I'm using Laura Mercier, Mercier, and it is a translucent setting powder. It has no color, so you just put it on with a brush to kind of keep your nose and face from getting shiny. So there's so many different kinds of loose translucent powders. If you're a gentleman and you have a wife that wears cosmetics, she can likely have some that you may not even need to go purchase any. And I recommend keeping it on the campaign trail in person and digitally, because you never know when your face is just going to get a little shiny, and you want to just take care of that before you might have potentially the biggest moment of your campaign. So I wanted to go over the costs between having a $0 setup to potentially what I have, which is about a $300 setup. And with your digital space around you, you might be looking at potentially having most of your campaign all indoors this cycle. We a little too early to know exactly for sure, but I have behind me the green screen that I had mentioned, as well as the white screen behind it, and the lighting and a microphone and a microphone holder. This is all in about $300. The equipment these days is pretty affordable. You can get it on Amazon. Some things may be running low, or might be take a little bit to get to you, just because of the virus might be delaying shipping. But podcasting equipment is what you can start looking for. And the lighting comes with the green screen and the setup. There's a stand behind it. So that's it's not all that much when you consider the trade-offs like gas and time that you'll be spending. And libertarians are always doing really well on the internet. So this is kind of our year to show that we can not only sound good online, but we can look good too. And if you have the luxury of having your equipment set up in one place for the entire campaign season, that might be very useful. So that way you're already in the habit of using your space, and you don't have to get it set up every single time you have a potential interview. You might be able to just hop on right away if there's some breaking news and your campaign's really taking off and they want to get your comments.
Okay, I'm flipping through some of the other questions. Is there a good way to test Facebook Live? I've been having mic problems, but only when I'm on Facebook Live, not normally. That's a tough one. So if you're able to record on your computer and using other platforms, other streaming platforms, and that seems to be okay, and the problem is only Facebook Live, I might then investigate using a different platform and then streaming from that platform to Facebook Live. Jess and I both do podcasts on our off time, all our free time that we have. And we don't just Facebook Live it. We're using a different platform that streams onto Facebook Live, and it gives you a lot more control. So whether that's something like Zoom, because when you do the higher paid accounts, you can stream them from Zoom on, or StreamYard is another one that you can do that. So that would be a suggestion.
That Facebook is glitching and down, where it can be down for service for a few hours. So that does happen. So it may not be just you. It might be the service was not available during that period of time.
Exactly. Yep. Easy to get the Zoom link, create a private Facebook group to share with friends before broadcasting. Yeah, always test things out. Most definitely. How often for live streams on Facebook pages? Weekly. And then for live streams, preference for stand up or live at events. I think the number of live streams that you do, this is not about a number. This is about, are you providing something of value or not? If you're providing something of value, then you can stream. If you're streaming and it's not providing value to the people that are going to be watching it, I don't care if it's once a week, once a month, or once a day, don't do it. So it's not so much a hard number as it is, are you providing value?
And I think having a conversation where there's multiple people involved is much more welcoming and friendly than just you as a candidate speaking at your phone. Because when you're going on your stump speech and you're the only one who's talking and you're interacting with the people in the comments, it's not as comfortable to watch, because there is that little bit of a factor of intimidation that um, when you're viewing it, it just doesn't feel comfy. It seems weird, kind of. So we're just, as a society, I think we're not there yet with people talking at their computers and people watching it. So having another person to speak with, maybe highlighting businesses in your community, how people are helping each other with the relief efforts, that's going to make people interested and engaged and feel good about your candidacy.
Absolutely. Okay, we are going to be looking at, oh, I've seen some Instagram stars put some impressive content using just their phone. Imagine something like that takes practice, several takes. So yes, I mean, so when you see Instagram stars, these are people who most of the time, by the time they're stars, they've had years of working with technology, started very young. They're just very adept at it. And out of all the people who did it, only a tiny, 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 tiny percentage become stars at it. You know, they have that aptitude to be able to do it and a presence to be able to do it. I certainly don't. I don't know many people who do. That's why they're stars. They're that 1/4 of half of a 1% that then, you know, that all tried it and worked really hard at it and became really good at it. So
Creating digital content is not the easiest thing. It's thankfully much more affordable than it used to be, but it's going to take you some time. So be easy on yourself and give yourself that time to practice and review with friends and get comfortable working behind a screen rather than knocking doors and shaking hands and being at parades this cycle. So be easy on yourselves. And use your network of libertarian friends and other candidates to do practice runs with. Ask practice questions.
okay, if we don't have any other questions, we're going to start to wrap up here. One thing also that we always do a test on, and as you can see, I changed what my name is. You might be on a chat with some friends and think something's funny and change your background and do all of those kinds of things. Do a little test before you jump on, just to make sure that your name that's going to appear on screen is as it should be, that you haven't left you know, a like a weird fun virtual background on or anything like that. You know, check those kinds of things to make sure that that doesn't pop in unexpectedly. Let's see. Also imagine there's some editing software. Yeah, there is. There's a lot of editing software out there. Thankfully, much of it's getting much easier to use, but it's still not something you're going to pick up. Yeah,
It's not easy.
It does. Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you so much, Jess, for being our good, delightful, wonderfully presenting candidate. I will have to thank my husband for his cameo that he did in bringing me a beer. So, and thank you everyone for this. I have put in the chat the link on where I'm archiving these. These will very shortly get moved onto the LP website so that we're archiving them there in the candidate section. But right now they're being archived on my personal, and then they'll be moved over. But thank you very much, everyone. This has been fantastic.
Have a nice night.